Commander Rokul stood tall at the center of the command deck. His black and silver armor reflected the lights from the giant viewing window. Outside, the stars glittered around Earth. The blue planet hung below, silent and still. Behind him, 2,000 Zorvak warships waited in formation like sharp blades pointed at their prey. Rokul turned to his officers and smiled. "This will be easy," he said. "They will surrender within hours." His second-in-command, General Verak, laughed loudly. "Their defense satellites are from the last century. Primitive, weak, unworthy." The crew around them relaxed. Some even cheered. For weeks, the Zorvak Dominion had studied Earth's systems, weapons, and communications. They expected panic. Instead, Earth said nothing. No resistance. Verak smirked. Not even a message begging for mercy. "Maybe they already gave up," said another officer. Rokul narrowed his eyes. "No, that's not how intelligent species act. There's something strange here." He turned toward the viewing screen. Earth showed no signs of preparing for war. Cities glowed peacefully. No ships launched. No shields activated. It felt too quiet. Suddenly, a siren blared across the command deck. "Commander," shouted the communication officer. "Earth's satellites just went dark. All of them." "What do you mean all?" Rokul barked. "Every satellite, military and civilian, has gone offline. GPS is dead. Global networks, silent." Rokul stepped forward. "Did we fire?" "No, sir. They just stopped working." The screen flickered. All systems across the ship dimmed for a moment. Then a message appeared on every screen, in every Zorvak warship. "You shouldn't have come." Silence filled the bridge. The words were in perfect Zorvak language. No noise, no distortion. Just 5 words. The room felt colder. Verak tried to laugh again. Some kind of human joke. But no one laughed this time. Then something new appeared on the screen, an object, large and dark, drifting near Earth's upper orbit. The sensors couldn't lock onto it. It hadn't been there before. "Identify that ship," Rokul shouted. The officers worked quickly, but no data came. "It doesn't show on scans," one said. "It's invisible to our radar. But there it is, right in front of us." The unknown ship was massive, twice the size of any Zorvak flagship. Its surface was smooth and black, like glass that swallowed light. No lights, no engines, no visible weapons. It just hovered, completely still. "It was cloaked," Verak whispered. "How long has it been there?" Rokul's jaw tightened. "Too long." Suddenly, several of the outer warships lost power. Their engines shut down. One began to drift. Another spun slowly, its lights fading. "No explosions, no attacks," said a technician. "They just died." "Something is disabling them," said Rokul. "And that ship is the source." He raised his voice. "Prepare to attack. Lock all weapons on the unknown vessel. Fire on my command." The crew hesitated for a moment, unsure. This wasn't going how they expected. I said fire. Rokul rode. The weapons charged. Red targeting lights locked onto the mysterious ship. The command ship's cannons began to glow. Then, without warning, the black ship moved. It was fast, far too fast for its size. In a second, it disappeared from view. "What happened?" Verak shouted. The viewing screen switched. 3 more ships had gone dark. The unknown ship reappeared behind the second row of the fleet. It wasn't attacking. It was observing. "Commander," said an officer in a shaky voice, "they're watching us." More ships powered down. Dozens now. They didn't explode. They just turned off, one by one, like candles snuffed out by invisible fingers. Rokul stared at the silent Earth. His claws tapped against the control rail. "They haven't said another word," he muttered. "Not even a warning. No demand. No threat. No, Verak whispered. That message was the warning. Wokul clenched his fists. He felt something he hadn't felt in decades: fear. This is no ordinary species, he said. We prepared for war, but they prepared for us. He turned back to the bridge crew. Full fleet alert. Formed defensive positions. No more underestimating these humans. But deep down, Wokul knew something had gone terribly wrong. The 10-to-1 advantage didn't matter now. The humans had been silent, watching, waiting. And now, they had made their move. Commander Wokul's eyes locked on the black human dreadnought drifting through his fleet. It wasn't just massive. It was quiet, cold, and terrifying. Still, he believed his fleet of 2,000 ships could overwhelm anything. Fire everything, he shouted. Missiles, beams, disruptors. Turn that ghost ship to ash. Across the armada, thousands of weapon systems charged up. Red lines glowed, energy hummed. The Zorvak fleet was famous across the galaxy for its precision and power. A wave of firepower launched through space, missiles, plasma, beams, and torpedoes, all aimed at the silent black ship. And yet, none of it hit. The human ship didn't dodge. It didn't activate shields, but the weapons never landed. Some exploded early. Some just vanished. And a few missiles turned around and flew back into the Zorvak fleet, striking their own carriers. What is this? Verak shouted. Some kind of tech loop. No, the tech officer said, trembling. It's worse than that. It's like our weapons are being controlled. Wokul stared in disbelief. That's impossible. One of their own cruisers exploded on the left flank. The blast shook their formation. Dozens of ships broke ranks, panicking. Get them back into position. Wokul barked. Hold the lines. But it was too late. The black ship was gone again. No trail, no engine signature. Just disappeared. And then, more power losses. Whole squadrons went dark. Ships floated helplessly. One by one, systems shut down without damage, as if someone had pressed a button in their control cores. Suddenly, a second human ship appeared behind them. Slightly smaller, but equally invisible to scans. It uncloaked without a sound, and just hovered near their rear command fleet. How many of these things are there? Verak whispered. I don't know, Wokul replied. And that's the problem. They had come to Earth thinking it would be an easy conquest. But Earth wasn't just ready, it was waiting. I think they let us come here, Wokul muttered. They'd wanted us to step into their trap. The silence from Earth continued. No messages, no voices, just quiet confidence. Suddenly, every screen in every ship flickered again. New words appeared. This is your only warning. Leave. Now. The voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. It didn't shout. It promised. A calm tone that spoke of absolute control. Some Zorvak captains begged for retreat. Others still wanted to fight. We still outnumber them, Verak insisted. They can't disable all of us. Wokul didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the dark sky, now scattered with a few human vessels, only a handful visible. But each had already disabled dozens of their own. They don't need to disable all of us, Wokul finally said. Just enough. And then the rest will destroy themselves in panic. He wasn't wrong. Confusion spread across the fleet. Miscommunication. Ships turning in the wrong direction. Friendly fire. Broken formations. One Zorvak battlecruiser, thinking a cloaked ship was beside it, fired blindly and struck its own allies. They've broken our control, Wokul whispered. Still, he had one final move. Activate the central fusion cannon, he ordered. We'll fire directly at Earth. If we can't win, we'll make sure they know our strength. The fusion cannon was their deadliest weapon. It could level a continent. It would send a message. The charge built up. Massive energy flowed through the command ship. Then, the power shut off. The lights died. The screens blinked out. Even the gravity systems failed. For a moment, the command deck floated in silence, in darkness. Then, one more message appeared in glowing white letters. You were warned. And just like that, the command ship's engines exploded, not with a blast, but with a quiet, controlled pulse. They weren't destroyed. They were disabled. Trapped. Commander Rokul floated helplessly as the black dreadnought reappeared, right outside the main window. It didn't aim a weapon. It didn't need to. It was simply watching. Like a judge in a courtroom, waiting to deliver the sentence. Rokul had never felt so powerless. 2,000 warships. The pride of the Zorvak. And now, they were nothing. Earth hadn't spoken in hours. But its silence had said everything. The Zorvak fleet drifted in space like a broken beast, its mighty warships suspended in the dark, powerless. Commander Rokul gripped his chair, staring at the cold, darkened space ahead. His once proud fleet was no longer the fearsome force it had been. A fleet that had been meant to conquer Earth now lay fractured, scattered, and confused. Around him, the Zorvak captains bickered, their voices rising in panic. "We need to retreat," shouted Captain Varak. "The humans have shown us that they can crush us whenever they want. We're sitting targets." "They've disabled half our fleet already," Captain Zar argued. "If we retreat now, we'll just be more vulnerable. They'll hunt us down and destroy us in pieces." Rokul's gaze was distant, his mind racing. He had never considered that a species so small could turn the tide against them. The humans, with their planet barely a blip in the vastness of the galaxy, had thrown his entire strategy into disarray. They had fought without warning, without desperation, but with something far more dangerous: confidence. No, he wasn't going to admit defeat. Not yet. "We will not retreat," Rokul growled. "The Zorvak do not run from their enemies. We will press on." "But we can't," Zar said, his voice weak. "We've lost too many ships. Our weapons systems are malfunctioning. We can't fire at them. We can't even see them. What do you suggest we do? Wait here and let them finish us off?" "Hold position," Rokul ordered, his tone heavy. "If they want to fight, they will come, and we will be ready." He had no plan. The Zorvak were used to fighting wars on their terms. Their armada, twice the size of Earth's forces, had always been enough to overwhelm their enemies. But the humans were unlike any enemy they had faced before. All of a sudden, the silence around them was shattered by a sharp voice, coming from their communications officer. "Commander," the officer shouted, "we're picking up something, coming from Earth." Rokul's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "Energy readings, massive," the officer continued. "It's like a wave of power." "No, wait, 2 waves." The alien commander's stomach twisted. He had expected nothing more from Earth: silence, submission, maybe even a few last-ditch efforts to resist. But not this. "They're preparing something," Rokul muttered. "Their desperation is showing." The officer's eyes widened. "It's not desperation, Commander. It's the power signature of another ship. Even bigger than the one we encountered before." "What?" Rokul whispered. His mind tried to grasp the thought, but it didn't make sense. A second dreadnought. "They're out there," the officer said, trembling, as he stared at the readings. "We've never seen anything like it. And they've activated. It's coming toward us." "Impossible," Rokul snarled. "How are they doing this? We've already broken their defenses. This is a trick. A trap." But deep down, the Zorvak commander knew this wasn't a trick. The humans had something far more terrifying than mere technology. They had a strategy. They didn't fight with force alone, but with patience, control, and calculation. And the Zorvak were falling right into their hands. The new human ship appeared on their screens, shimmering in and out of sight. No weapons fired. No flashy display of power. Just a silent, looming presence. It was clear now, this wasn't about fighting. The humans weren't desperate. They didn't need to show off. They simply wanted to watch, to observe. A chill ran down Wokel's spine. It was as though the humans were testing them, not just their strength, but their very will. What do they want? Wokel muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. Commander, the officer said, "We've detected another transmission. It's coming from Earth." Another message. Wokel barked, his impatience rising. The officer nodded. With a trembling hand, he pressed a button, and the message appeared on the large screen. The words were simple, clear, and chilling. "Your time is over. Leave." Wokel stood frozen, his eyes narrowing. This was no longer a simple battle. This was an invitation to give up, to surrender. And the most terrifying part was that the Zolvac didn't know how to respond. They were the invaders, the conquerors. They weren't supposed to be on the defensive. A panic began to spread among the fleet. Ships were whispering about retreat. Others were considering surrender. But Wokel's pride wouldn't let him give in. He couldn't let the humans know that they had broken him. He clenched his fists, his eyes burning with a mix of fury and fear. "We are Zolvac," he said through gritted teeth. "We do not bow. We do not run." Prepare to engage them. But inside, doubt began to creep in. The humans had already shown that they could easily turn the tide, and he had no way of knowing how many ships were out there, lurking in the dark. What if it was too late? Wokel's command center was silent except for the low hum of the warship's systems. The cold, indifferent vastness of space stretched endlessly outside the viewport, and the Zolvac fleet was still arrayed in formation, dark and still like predators waiting for their prey. But now, the fear was palpable. Every officer, every crew member felt it. The humans had proven that they were not like any enemy the Zolvac had ever faced. Wokel's mind raced, but his pride refused to admit the truth. The humans were more than just a nuisance. They were a threat unlike anything the Zolvac had ever known. "Commander," the communications officer's voice broke through his thoughts. "We're receiving another transmission from Earth." Wokel's heart skipped a beat. He didn't want to hear another taunt, another challenge. But the officer's tone was urgent, and he knew he had no choice. His hand shot out, slamming the button to activate the screen. The same haunting message appeared, but this time it was accompanied by a disturbing image. The silhouette of a massive ship, bigger than anything the Zolvac had ever seen. "The end is near." The words seemed simple, but they carried a weight that settled heavily on Wokel's chest. The humans weren't just making threats anymore. They were declaring victory before the battle had even truly begun. He could feel the pressure building. The Zolvac had attacked countless planets before, but never one so resolutely silent. Never one that waited, that prepared in complete stillness, and then struck with such overwhelming power. He glanced at the tactical display. His fleet was still intact, but the numbers didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the growing uncertainty, the crushing realization that the humans were in control, not the Zolvac. Suddenly, a sharp alarm echoed through the command center. The officers scrambled at their stations, their movements frantic, as a new set of readings flashed on the screen. "Commander," Captain Varric shouted. "There's something moving toward us, rapidly. It's huge." Wokel gritted his teeth. "It's them. Prepare for impact. We don't retreat." His ships began to charge forward, but even as the fleet moved, the commander couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. What if the humans had already anticipated this move? What if they had already prepared their counterattack? The massive human dreadnought they had seen earlier now loomed on their sensors, growing larger by the second. It was approaching with calm precision, no fear, no hesitation. And then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the human ship vanished, completely cloaked from view. A few moments passed in complete silence. The Zolvac ships kept their course, engines roaring as they powered through space. But no one could shake the tension. Every ship was on high alert, every officer waiting for the inevitable strike. Suddenly, without warning, an explosion rocked the Zolvac fleet. It came from nowhere. No warning, no sign of attack. It was like the very fabric of space had shattered, and the force of the explosion rippled through the armada. "Damage reports. Now," Rokul shouted. "We've lost 2 dreadnoughts. Power systems are failing on 3 others." A frantic officer called out, "It's the human ship. We didn't see it until it was too late." Rokul's mind went numb. How was this possible? Their entire fleet, their pride, was crumbling under an attack they couldn't even see. How could they fight an enemy they couldn't detect, couldn't predict? Rokul's jaw clenched in frustration. "We need to regroup. Prepare to fire everything we have at them. This is no longer a battle for Earth. This is our survival." But as his ships tried to lock onto the cloaked dreadnought, another explosion struck, this time closer. Another warship fell, then another. And yet, the humans did not appear on the screens. No ship, no visible attack. It was as if they were everywhere and nowhere all at once. The Zolvac fleet was disintegrating in front of his eyes, and for the first time in his long career, Rokul felt true fear. His mind raced for a solution, but it was becoming clear. There was no victory here. The humans had taken control of the situation from the start. In desperation, Rokul gave the order to fall back. "All ships, retreat, now." But it was already too late. The remaining ships of the Zolvac fleet scattered, attempting to break formation and escape. But without warning, the cloaked human dreadnought reappeared in their midst, its massive form filling the viewport, blocking their path. The humans hadn't chased them. They hadn't needed to. They had simply watched, waited, and allowed the Zolvac to destroy themselves. "Why? Why didn't they kill us?" Captain Varric gasped. His voice was filled with disbelief. Rokul could only stare at the massive human ship, knowing that in some way the answer was far worse than death itself. The humans didn't need to destroy them. They had already shown them how powerless they were. Rokul's heart sank. The Zolvac had lost, but the humans had taken something more precious than their fleet. They had taken their pride. And in the end, that would be the hardest wound to heal. The Zolvac fleet, once vast and powerful, was now shattered and broken. Pieces of ships drifted aimlessly in space, wreckage from the previous explosions that had torn apart their pride. What remained of their warships limped through the void, many of them barely operational, their hulls scared and smoking. The once glorious Zolvac armada was no longer a threat. It was a memory. Commander Rokul stood in the shattered remains of his command center, staring out at the cold expanse of space. His once gleaming uniform was now stained with sweat and the weight of defeat. His crew had all but abandoned their posts, some too frightened to move, others too disheartened to care. The great fleet had fallen, not by sheer force, but by a silent, invisible hand. "Commander," the communications officer called out, but Rokul didn't respond. The final message from Earth still echoed in his mind. "You shouldn't have come." It was a simple message, but it held such meaning. The humans hadn't even needed to engage in battle. Their strategy, their patience, and their technology had proven too much for the Zolvac. They had left nothing behind. No wreckage, no sign of their presence except the defeat that lingered in the air. They had outwitted, outsmarted, and outclassed the Zolvac at every turn. The last remaining Zolvac ships tried to flee, attempting to regroup and escape into the deep reaches of space. But Earth had already demonstrated its strength. The humans had allowed them to retreat, but with a chilling certainty that they were always within reach. The message was clear. The Zolvac were no longer the apex predators they had once thought themselves to be. "Commander," the officer repeated, "there's another transmission from Earth." Wokul turned slowly, his pride still fighting against the humiliation that clung to him. He had never lost so thoroughly, so decisively, and he wasn't sure if he could bear to hear another message of victory from the humans. But he couldn't escape it. He knew the message would come, just as the others had. He nodded grimly, and the officer activated the transmission. The same cold, direct voice filled the room, and once again, Wokul felt the weight of defeat settle over him. This is the cost of underestimating humanity. We warned you. The message was brief, but it stung deeper than any weapon ever could. There was no taunting, no celebration, only a quiet, undeniable truth. The humans had warned them, and they had failed to listen. The transmission ended, and silence filled the command center once again. The officers remained motionless, too stunned to speak. Wokul's grip tightened on the railing in front of him. He could feel the eyes of his crew upon him, waiting for some sign of what to do next. But there was nothing left to say. The Zolvac had once believed themselves invincible, untouchable. They had seen Earth as weak, defenseless, unworthy of attention. But in the end, it was their arrogance that had led to their downfall. They had underestimated the humans, not just as warriors, but as survivors, as beings who would not go down without a fight. And now, standing at the edge of their extinction, Wokul understood the true cost of that mistake. His people had underestimated humanity's will, and in doing so, they had signed their own death warrant. Wokul turned away from the viewport, the image of Earth still looming in his mind. There was no hope for redemption now. The Zolvac were broken, scattered to the far reaches of space. Some would survive, but they would never again be the dominant force they once were. The humans hadn't destroyed them. No, they had done something far worse. They had left them with nothing. Nothing to rebuild. Nothing to fight for. Nothing but the shame of their own defeat. In that silence, Wokul finally understood the final lesson the humans had taught them. Sometimes victory is not in destruction. Sometimes victory is in leaving nothing behind. And as he stood there, watching his fleet's remnants drift aimlessly into the void, the weight of that truth crushed him, leaving only the echoes of a war lost, and the haunting memory of a battle they would never forget.